Welcome to Get Sleepy, the podcast where we listen, we relax, and we get sleepy. I'm your host, Miriam. Thanks for joining us tonight. In this episode, we have a sleepy retelling of one of Aesop's fables about an astronomer and the importance of appreciating where you are and what you have. Let's relax a little bit before starting our story tonight. I'm sure we've all spent evenings staring into the empty expanse of outer space, looking at those little twinkling lights in the sky, and wondering what lies out there in that eternity of stars. I absolutely love spending evenings doing just that, comprehending the frankly incomprehensible vastness of space. So, why not imagine that scene now, as you begin along the path to sleep? Transport yourself back to a time where you laid comfortably, maybe in your garden, in a field, a hammock, or on the beach, and gazed at the stars. Feel the tranquility of that moment envelop you. The peace in realizing how grand the universe is, and perhaps how small and insignificant that made some of the everyday burdens of life seem. The problems we all face day to day are but temporary bumps on a long road. But also, as you gaze out beyond our own world, just remember that your place within the vast universe is every bit as significant as anything else in existence. In this spot, you can be at ease, you can be yourself completely and fully, and you can rest. It's here, in this moment, staring into space, that our story begins. Once there lived an astronomer who was mesmerized by the night sky. He would stay awake all night, admiring the constellations sparkling in the darkness overhead. He lived in a small village in ancient Greece, where the mountains climbed up from the sea. The hillside was dotted with small houses, which formed a constellation of their own. But, although he lived in a wonderful place, he had a singular passion. Once he was awakened to the beauty of the night sky, it wasn't long before the astronomer cared for nothing else. The astronomer lived in a squat white house, adorned simply with a bed, dresser, desk, and chair. He didn't need much else, because all he did in the house was sleep and record the constellations while sitting at his desk. He had no need for a table or chairs for guests, as he rarely entertained a single friend or relative. He had no time for such things when there was always more of the night sky to discover. What wonders must still lie above to help people navigate, tell the time, and read the seasons, he thought. In his dreams, all he saw were the stars. He wished he could float into space to get a better look at the pinpricks of light that made up his life's work. The little corner of Greece where he lived was blessed with clear skies, and the astronomer wanted to discover as much of them as he could. Each night, he wandered further from the village, feet pacing over the rocky ground, to see the stars from different viewpoints. In the village, the townspeople farmed, gardened, and fished every day. All who lived there knew everything about everyone else, and so, the astronomer felt there was much more possibility in the heavens. Wanting to take full advantage of his nighttime strolls, the astronomer slept in the hot afternoon, while his friends and family enjoyed long meals together. At night, while they slumbered, he wandered the fields alone, climbing rolling hills and strolling on rocky paths, always gazing skyward. As dawn broke, and the rest of the village was waking up, the astronomer would tuck himself away in the privacy of his home and write down his observations from the night before. Then, he'd drift off to sleep, dreaming of the night ahead. He was so consumed by the world of galaxies, planets, and celestial bodies. All the most exciting things, the astronomer thought, happened at night. During the day, light illuminated all. But when the night sky took over, so much remained a mystery. It was a challenge to learn about it all. He watched the seasons pass through the stars, the landscape changing around him while he slept. Since he only went out at night, the astronomer never noticed the blooming of new flowers in spring, or the sweet, earthy scent of autumn. Someone else had already learned all there was to know about everything on land, he thought. What hid in the night sky was untapped potential, secrets, and unanswered questions. The astronomer watched Artemis's hunt in the stars. He sought the gods of Olympus in the constellations. Sometimes, under the glint of the moon, he would visit the temple of Artemis to pay tribute to the beauty shining in the sky above. The temple in his village had an open roof, which was perfect for stargazing. He barely noticed the architect's marble columns or carved statues, as he only cared for the creations above. One night, the astronomer was out for his walk, gazing up at the stars as he always did. He was admiring the way the Big and Little Dipper fit perfectly together. Not looking where he was going, he tripped over a log and found himself tangled in his robes on the ground. His neighbor happened to hear the commotion and came out to see what had happened. The astronomer chuckled at his clumsiness and gathered himself together. As the neighbor helped him to his feet, he said, "My friend, why do you spend so much time looking at the stars when you fail to see what is right in front of you?" The astronomer laughed. He thought of the beauty in the stars and the night sky, the joy of gazing at worlds so far away from his own. But perhaps his neighbor was right. Maybe he spent too much time looking up at the sky, and not enough time enjoying what was given to him on Earth. The astronomer returned home and, for the first time since he was a child, fell asleep that night. He awoke in the morning to the town coming alive. The sounds of laughter and quiet chatter rolled in the warm breeze outside. At first, the astronomer felt gloomy. What had he missed in the heavens last night? But then, as he dressed and went outside, his smile slowly grew. The same neighbor who had helped him the night before invited him over for breakfast. There was delicious, soft, crusty bread, crisp on the outside and doughy on the inside, along with hard cheeses and a warm mug of strong coffee. How long had it been since the astronomer had eaten freshly baked bread, or enjoyed a mug of coffee shared with a friend? As they sat and sipped their coffee around the outdoor table, the astronomer told the neighbor's wife what had happened the night before. When they were finished, the couple decided to accompany him on a walk around the village. They were determined to help him experience everything they loved about their hometown. They set off together to walk down the lane. "Doesn't the soft earth feel wonderful beneath your feet?" they asked him. "Can you smell the fresh bread and coffee all the other villages are enjoying this morning?" The astronomer's senses were delighted by the aroma of breakfast, and he noticed how the earth was slightly soft but still firm beneath his feet, cushioning each step he took. In all the hours he had spent wandering, he'd never realized how wonderful it could be. If he had paid so much attention to the ground the night before, perhaps he never would have tripped. They walked past a woman selling fruit from a little stand. "I haven't seen you in a while," the fruit seller called to the astronomer, waving him over. "Let's share some fresh juice together." She squeezed oranges into a cup. They let off the delicate and enticing floral scent of orange blossoms. When he took his first sip, the cool, sweet taste of the juice filled his mouth. "Yes, the stars at night are beautiful, but you can't drink the stars," he mused to himself. In that moment, the astronomer thought the glittering constellations only looked half as sweet as this earthly delight. When the neighbors told the fruit seller of their mission to help him see the beauty of the town, she said they must go and visit her niece's garden. For if you were enjoying the wonders on earth, that was the best place in town to do so. "I'll show you the way," she said, closing up her stall in favor of a new adventure. As they walked down the lane, more and more of their neighbors came out to join them. They weren't used to seeing the astronomer out and about during the day, so they each had a spot they wanted to show him. The astronomer couldn't remember the last time he'd been around so many people. He had opted for the quiet of night rather than the noises of daytime. But now that he was truly listening, he could hear the music in his friends' voices. When the group arrived at the niece's garden, she welcomed them with open arms. "What an honor to have the great astronomer in my garden for the very first time," she said with a smile. Together, he and the townspeople admired the flowers. The niece pointed to a bunch of red blooms growing around a wooden archway. "These are special wildflowers created by Aphrodite," she told him. The astronomer stood under the arch, admiring the red and green, mixing with the brown wood overhead. The flowers smelt piney and a little sweet. He enjoyed them immensely. Next, they looked at a patch of beautiful purple irises. When the astronomer peered at them closely, he could see the white circles surrounding the yellow center that gave the flower its distinctive name. They gazed at orange lilies and white orchids. They immersed themselves in the fresh and fragrant air of the garden. When it was time to leave, the niece decided to join the rest of her neighbors on their walk around the village. Watching the astronomer experiencing these pleasures for the first time was reminding everyone just how wonderful life on Earth could be. The astronomer strolled in the middle of the group as they left the center of the village and continued down the road to the Temple of Apollo. The pillars of the temple glittered in the sunlight. The astronomer noticed the change underfoot as he stepped from the dirt path to the temple's marble floor. The heat of the day was growing, and he appreciated the cool ground beneath him and the roof above. It was quite different from the temple of Artemis, he thought. He took a moment to stand still, his feet pressed into the marble, and a gentle breeze wound its way through the pillars, keeping him cool in the shade of the temple. The other townspeople around him explored the building, admiring the statues and carvings on the walls. He enjoyed the feeling of staying still while the world moved around him. Perhaps he need not always be in motion, he thought. Sometimes it was best to take a break from work and study, and just enjoy existing in the moment. When he was ready, he walked slowly around the walls of the temple, admiring the details. The great artists and architects had embedded them into this special place, which was used for community gatherings and for paying homage to the gods. When the sun rose higher in the sky, the group left the temple and gathered in the shaded village square for lunch. They each shared what they had: soft cheeses, leftover bread from the morning, roasted barley, and juicy olives. the astronomer relished each burst of flavor in his mouth. Before, he had hurried through meals, stealing bites in between long periods of stargazing. Now he appreciated taking the time to savor these delicious foods. How have I never taken the time to really experience this before, he wondered. He ate slowly, enjoying the sweet and salty tastes intermingled on his tongue, and noticing how the crunchy barley and soft cheese complemented each other perfectly. When they'd finished the main course, the fruit seller fetched a basket of her produce for dessert. The villagers drizzled the different fruits with honey, making them even sweeter and more decadent. The astronomer took a bite of each, delighting in the rich flavors. After the meal, the people lazily walked back to their homes for a nap. They waved goodbye to each other and promised to visit again soon. Sleep during the day was one thing the astronomer was used to, but when he got home and lay down on his bed, he couldn't fall asleep. Instead, he paid attention to the soft sound of his breath moving in and out of his body. He listened to the gentle twittering of birds outside, accompanied by the soft buzzing of bees. Through the open window, he smelled the flowers in the garden. A light gust of wind brought in all the delightful aromas of herbs, spices, and greenery. He lay there, resting his body and using his senses to immerse himself in the world around him. As the sun drifted lower in the sky, the astronomer heard a knock at the door. His neighbors had come to fetch him. There was one more thing they wanted to show him this evening. Together they walked the winding path up the mountain next to the village. The path was narrower here, and the parade of townsfolk carried blankets and baskets on their heads. The evening breeze rustled the shrubs around them, and birds followed along above, wondering where the procession of villagers was going. The astronomer watched the clicking heels of the woman in front of him, and heard the footsteps of the man behind. His senses felt alive, and heightened in a way he had never experienced before, even at night. When they reached a plateau, they spread out the blankets and unpacked the food. Looking around, he realized everyone had brought all of the finest things in their pantries. The farmer took out fresh vegetables and meats. The fisherman unpacked salted herring and calamari. Boiled eggs were sliced and passed around, and everyone shared wine from an ornate glass jug. The people talked and laughed, but the astronomer sat in silence, taking everything in. He listened to the stories of his new friends' lives that he had so often ignored before. He saw the way the trees swayed in the wind, casting shadows on the rocks dotting the mountainside. He could see the village below, and the peak of the mountain above, and he enjoyed the aromas of all the different foods the people had lovingly prepared. Soon, the sun began to paint the sky in vibrant hues. In all the time the astronomer had sought the stars, he had never before appreciated their opening act. He had always waited for the sunset to finish and night to fall. But now that he had slowed down, he could admire each shade of yellow, pink, red, and purple. As the sun lowered itself sleepily behind the mountain's peak, when the final rays of sun disappeared beneath the horizon, the villagers packed up the remaining food and folded the blankets ready to go home for the night. But the astronomer stopped them. "Now, I have something to show you," he said. His friends unfurled their blankets and lay down on the soft earth, watching the sky grow dark overhead. Glittering white and yellow stars began to poke through the darkness, delighting the villagers. Watching from below, The astronomer had seen the stars many times before, but he'd never noticed how their bright light brought out the shadows of the trees and heightened the contrast of the ground below.